There is nobody who feels the loss of a child more than their parents. And tonight here on KPRC 2+, a new episode of the award-winning true crime docuseries, The Evidence Room. Now, this show focuses on Uh-Oh the Clown and what he did to two little girls in July of 1992. Here in the studio to talk more about this episode tonight, from KPRC 2 Investigates, our buddy Jason Wynn. Good morning.
Good morning, Owen. Thanks for having me.
This takes us way back, 1992. I mean, this is over.
Neighbor named Kristen Wiley, and she was, playing with her friend Kenara Carrero, and the two are 7 and 10 years old. They're playing inside their house, listening to loud music, doing what preteen girls do, having fun. Well, this guy, Uh-Oh the Clown, Mr. Rex Warren Mays, well, he just got fired from Exxon. That was his day job. And so he's allegedly, according to his confession, he says that he had lost his job. He stopped down the street right by their house there and was trying to figure out something to tell his wife. But somehow he ends up walking into their home, hearing this music, and I guess he's yelling at the girls to turn the music down. Well, Kenara, she got a little smart and said, "No, why don't you get out of the house?" That's when, according to his confession, he went in the kitchen, grabbed a knife, followed him into the bedroom, and stabbed both girls to death. He didn't want Kenara to identify him, so he gouged her eyes out.
Identifying him for walking in the house at that, because there wasn't a crime.
There was,
I guess, technically a trespass.
But he was the neighbor, right? Yeah. So he was the neighbor, and this is the part where you're going to see Bob talk about later, and you kind of heard from him all morning, and you were talking about the father, and he goes in and he goes, Rex brought us into his home, and he talked to us, while they were trying to figure out who murdered their daughters. The police were there, the investigators, the detectives from the Harris County Sheriff's Office were there, and he brought them Cokes, brought them snacks, and then all of a sudden, Owen, he's like, well, I did see a black guy and a Spanish guy jump over my fence a little earlier. And so the cops spent 3-4 days trying to investigate.
It's
a ghost. It's a ghost. But we know criminals, and if anything, doing the evidence room, we know that some of these criminals like to be close to the crime. And it took a little while for police to figure out, or for deputies to figure out, who actually killed these girls. And eventually, Rex Warren Mays, the Uh-Oh the Clown, becomes primary suspect number 1. And this is what Bob has to say about him.
Okay.
You got 2 years. If you don't find out who it is, I will. I told him, and he said, when I wanted to turn around and walk, he said, just get a confession. I said, done. I'll string them up and skin them.
What stopped you?
It was to do the right thing. To do it right. If I kill him, I'd end up in jail. What good was that going to do for my little girl?
Oh.
You can kind of see the pain in his eyes. He took a little bit to answer that question because, he's talking to the detective, and there's 2 parts of the story that I found fascinating myself. He's talking to the detective about, hey, you got 2 years to find out who killed my daughter. I'm going to start looking into this. Well, eventually he finds out that his neighbor, Rex, was the primary suspect number 1. So him and his biker buddy started surveilling Rex and started hanging out with him. You hear that all morning long. We've been playing those sound bites because he wanted him to know, hey, we're keeping an eye on you. And he says, he didn't want to kill the wrong guy, just in case he got it wrong. So one of the things that he was doing was pressuring police and putting a little pressure on Rex himself. Rex didn't get jobs. He was a clown. He allegedly worked at the local Kmart. He went to kids' parties as Uh-Oh the Clown, and he wasn't able to get these jobs because of that. And then on the backside of this, you got a detective who's trying to work Rex. He's trying to be friends with Rex, brings him out on official business. Also that Rex would start talking about these murders, and eventually he gets his confession. It takes about 19 months to get that.
Is that a long time, do you think? I mean, back in those days, is that a quick investigation?
I think if he didn't throw him on a chasing ghosts type tale,
Yeah, right.
that it would have probably been solved a lot quicker. You know, obviously.
Well, because there's this time between, there's this gruesome murder scene, the guy gets away, and I mean, nobody saw anything, obviously, at the time. He's the only quote-unquote witness, the guy that commits the crime, of course.
Yeah, of course. And it's one of those things where I don't know if officers and deputies went in the backyard, saw the blood over the fence, or if maybe they were trying, you know, this is back in the 90s, 2000s, DNA was just starting to come about. Maybe they were trying to test some of that. But eventually, you know, they go looking at Rex, and Rex was their guy.
It's just interesting to hear that the first instinct is this guy is to say it was somebody else and just point to a ghost figure, and at that point, the detectives are going, well, it's the only evidence we have. I guess we take the guy at face value. I mean, what other reason did they have to not believe him at the time?
I mean, who knows? And one thing I do know is that this was a gruesome crime scene. And you know Andy Kahn with Crime Stoppers, he was saying that this was, you know, something right out of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Okay. Like, it was pretty bad. So I think they had a lot to go over and a lot to comb over. And, you know, this happened in the middle of the day. It doesn't sound like any of the other neighbors were home, you know, and the kids were out of school at the time. So it was one of those things where I think it was just a good crime of opportunity for this man, and eventually, you know, he got the death sentence for it.
He did. Boy, oh boy. What else are we going to hear in this episode tonight? Obviously, we're going to hear from the father. Who else is featured?
Well, you're going to hear Andy Kahn, and then we also read the confession itself. So you'll get to hear what Rex wrote down and why he says he did certain things. I mean, he went as far back. Oh, and this is kind of upsetting because I've got a lot of friends that serve in the armed services, and he went back and said, well, you know, it might have been the training I learned as a Marine. Such a cop. I mean, I felt like that was such a cop-out.
Well, interesting, a confession full of maybe not full, but in part excuses and reasoning and rationale maybe for what he did. How did you come away from reading the confession?
When I was reading the confession, it just seemed like there was a couple things he was trying to answer. So you'll see this in the early reports that we show in the show. You know, there was a big question if the girls were sexually assaulted. And, you know, he comes out in the confession and says, I didn't sexually assault those girls in a number of different ways. I mean, he describes how the girls look, but, you know, he says, I didn't sexually assault them. I didn't do anything other than stab them to death, which I don't know if that was yay, I didn't do what they were saying, or, you know, you never really know. But you're going to hear, you know, his words, you know, from what he had to put down.
What he put on paper.
Yeah, and then you're also going to, you know, see, you know, eventually, Bob, he watches the execution, and there's a law change. So this is the other thing that comes out of the episode. So back in the 90s, these victims, you know, these survivors of these victims couldn't go watch a death execution. So because of Bob Carrero and Andy Kahn, they were able to change the laws so that these guys could go actually see the execution. So he was there to witness his daughter's murderer be executed. And according to him, he didn't even bother to look at me.
No kidding.
And you'll hear him say his last words there, too.
You feel like families go for whatever kind of closure, whatever that definition is for them, or at least just to see this person's life end, and in that case, maybe not even getting the satisfaction of eye contact of any kind.
And this is your
no
normal
sense of responsibility, of course, taken by the criminal. So.
Yeah, and this is one of your normal, quiet Harris County neighborhoods. Yeah. You know, right off of Fair Force there. So it's, you know, when these girls, a lot of people still remember this story, and for a lot of people, you know, back in the 90s, we were just talking about this off air, but you know, the clowns in the 90s, 80s, like that was a big thing, and this was another reason why people are a little cautious when it comes to clowns. Yeah. According to you too, you're shaking there.
I mean, we've definitely met some people. It's like, you know, something about it just doesn't make me comfortable anymore. And probably some of these stories have to do with it. Fascinating Evidence Room streams tonight at 6:30 on KPRC2. Jason Wynn, thanks for being here, buddy. On KPRC2 Plus. Don't forget our live stream.
And don't forget, you can live chat with us during the show.
Great point as well. Jason will be there for that. Thanks for coming in and hanging out today. Very interesting.